And hello, my fellow nerds out there. It's Oracle Nerd Richie, and welcome back to Our Life Beginning in All Ways. Last episode, we went over the wave and growing moments, so we're gonna be continuing this off with the family moments. And I don't know, maybe we'll do dinner and road trip. I don't know, but I'll probably do the same as one of the previous episodes, where I go through the last three memories. So, without further ado, let's begin with family. The sun warmed your skin from its place in the sky, and you closed your eyes, enjoying the mix of heat with the pleasant breeze that drifted past you. You and Lee had spread out a blanket on top of one of the hills behind your house, and had been relaxing there for a while now. Lee had come over earlier in the day, and while a range of activities had been discussed, from staying home to heading out to the beach, a picnic on the hill had been the choice you both settled on. A small spread was laid out in front of you, some bottled water, soft drinks, as well as chips and sliced fruit. You sat up and reached for a snack, listening to Lee talk away about the musical shit gone to see a few days ago. It was unbelievable. They were singing and dancing and crazy stunts. It was all done live right in front of my face. Maybe one day we could go together. I've gotta see more shows like that. You smiled at Lee's enthusiasm, knowing how much she enjoyed singing and performing. And she was good at it too. You had gotten the chance to hear her sing a couple of tunes. You knew she put a lot of effort into it. You also liked to sing, but you weren't very good. You also liked to sing and had talent of your own. You didn't like to sing, but you had been told you were good at it. You weren't good at singing, and that suited you fine. Honestly, the top option sounds like me. That didn't stop you from doing it, though. I wonder, maybe we could put on our own show? Think of how fun it'd be. We could perform for our parents and ask our friends and some other people to come and watch too. It'd totally work. The idea gave you stage fright. I don't know about that. Yeah, let's do it. Sure, I'll give it a go. That's not a good idea. It'd be embarrassing. Sure, I'll give it a go. It wasn't something you had really thought about before, but if Lee wanted to do it, then you could at least give it a shot. Lee clapped in excitement and bounced on the balls of her feet, beyond happy that you were on board with her idea. I'm gonna sing. Do you want to too, or maybe do something else? I'll pick the outfits. Oh, these are actually all pretty good options. I could play an instrument. The trumpet. That that would be perfect. Is there anything else that's coming to your head? One more thing. I could I can write the song. Oh, I hope something dramatic. No, how about fun? Fun is better. What about both? Lee's face lit up at the idea, and she gave you a broad smile. That sounds perfect. No, that's all. The two of you ran back to your house to grab supplies you needed, dodging your mom's amused questions before heading back to the blanket to get started. You made sure you had a notebook and pen down, in case some inspiration hit. Lee and you discussed the plans in detail, settling on a song first, but then practicing out parts for the show. The afternoon passes quickly, the sun dropping lower and lower in the sky. After having thoroughly worked out how the show was going to go, you decided to take a break. We should have invited Cove to watch us practice our show. He could tell us if it's bad before we put on the real thing. I'm glad he didn't see. He said nothing. That's smart. We should ask him to watch us later. Okay. It's too bad Derek isn't in the neighborhood today. I like him. I really like him too. He's okay. Yeah, he's a good person. He's kind of boring. I don't really like him. He's a good person. I knew you'd think so. But speaking of boys we like, what's the relationship status between you and Cove? Is it good? You shouldn't gossip. I think things are alright. I think things are alright.
Alright.
Alright is better than bad. But like, really, are you gonna be telling him you have a crush on him anytime soon or what? I don't have a crush on Cove. I'll tell him soon. No way, I'm not telling him. I'm pretty sure he already knows. You weren't sure if you wanted to tell Cove or not. I'll tell him soon. I hope so. I know he's totally into you. I guarantee it. You didn't say anything, wondering about the possibilities instead. The two of you talked a little more about Cove, amongst the other topics, and you found that it was nice having someone to speak with about these sorts of things. Finally, you both decided to pack everything up and head back home for the evening. Lee talked excitedly about the show as you did, and you thought back on what you had already accomplished for it. You could definitely do with a little more practice, but what you had so far was a solid foundation for performance. Upon walking through the front door, you were met by your moms and Elizabeth hovering around each other in the living room. Tension hung thick in the air as the three of them turned to you and Lee, frowning slightly. You had interrupted something, exactly what you weren't sure. Wow, who died? What's going on? You looked between them and said nothing. Hello? What's going on? Your moms looked at each other, wondering which one of them was going to speak first. Eventually, Mom cleared her throat and spoke.
Oh.
We're just having a talk with your sister. The room felt quiet again, and no one quite knowing what to say. You felt incredibly awkward, but the silence didn't last long. You don't have to stop because those two are here. There's no reason to try keeping it a secret. Elizabeth was mad, and with her arms folded defensively over her chest, but your mom's nodded in agreement with her.
Well...
Elizabeth was asking about her parents. Wait, what? Wait, hold up. But I thought Ma was Elizabeth's mother, right? Unless... Wait, what did it mean by her? Did it mean by, like, Elizabeth's own parents? Is Elizabeth adopted? No way. Her biological ones. The world spun around you at the news. You couldn't understand why this was happening. Why was this happening now? When you glanced at Lee, she shuffled her feet up uncomfortably, as though she didn't know if she could be there or not anymore. You didn't know either. Your moms had always been open and honest about the fact that neither of them had given birth to you or your sister. Wait, so we're both adopted? Wow, okay, I was not expecting that. But the details hadn't fully been explained before. It made sense that Elizabeth didn't know a lot about biological parents and wanted to know more. You just hadn't ever thought you'd accidentally stumbled into it. Elizabeth looked at your parents expectantly. She wasn't going to let the unintentional interruption derail things. We don't want to keep that information from either of you. It's your right to know your past. But we did want to wait until you asked us to hear yourselves. Well, it's happening now, so... Your mom shared a nervous glance, and Maud took in a quick breath before speaking again. I adopted you from the Philippines when you were just a baby. Elizabeth dropped her arms, her eyebrows shooting upwards in surprise. Wait, I wasn't born here?
No.
No, you weren't. You could clearly see that your sister was appalled by this information. You struggled even more with what to do or how to react. Am I gonna have to pass some test to even be a citizen?
No.
No, you were adopted into the country. We took care of things. You're already a citizen. You have nothing to worry about. You have nothing to worry about. I followed all the laws when it came to bringing a child into the US. Nothing can be held against you. Elizabeth sighed, placated with the information, but still far from happy. Who are my parents? As people? Why did they put me up for adoption in the first place? Ma softly put her hands over Elizabeth's shoulders, trying to provide some support before she gave her the answer.
I am so sorry.
I'm so sorry, sweetie. Your parents were reported to have died. They didn't go into details and specifics how, but you were an orphan. I wish I had better news for you, Elizabeth. Elizabeth was torn between emotions, her eyes filled with tears as she threw her hands in the air, settling on enraged. Great, so I can never meet them. I never want, even if I wanted to. Not that I could have anyway, since they lived in another part of the world when they were still alive. Elizabeth turned her back on you and your mom's and stormed off, sprinting up the stairs and to her room before anyone could stop her. I have to go and talk to her. Ma immediately started to follow her, but Mom gently held her by the arm and shook her head. We should give her a little space to process it all. Your Ma's head hung low, but she stopped walking. With Elizabeth now gone, the two of them seemed to remember you and Lee were still standing awkwardly off to the side. I'm sorry you had to see all that. It's not how I expected it would have happened when the time came. But since it's the topic of the day, Richie, is there anything you'd like to ask? You deserve to know after all. Lee patted your back and gave you a supportive look. No, I don't want to hear. Not right now. You couldn't even answer. You know what? We have a right to know. We have a right to know. I want to know. Your parents both nodded in sync to your reply, ready to talk. I can leave if you want to have things that be private. No, I want you to be here. I can do that. Lee shifted a little closer to you in support, and you were glad to have her there with you. It made you feel a little stronger somehow. You turned to face your parents again, preparing yourself for what they were about to tell you. Ma was the first to speak, her voice quivering with emotion. You were adopted as a baby, but 2 years after Elizabeth. We used a different organization that time, and you were adopted within the US. We're sorry to tell you, Richie, your parents had also passed away, and no other family member took you in, if there were any. So both me and Elizabeth were adopted. I honestly don't know how to feel about that. I don't really know how to feel. That's why we wanted to wait until you asked. We didn't want to suddenly drop that in your lap. We wanted you to be prepared.
I'm sorry.
We're sorry, Richie. Lee gave you a reassuring squeeze on the arm to show she was there for you. Thank you for telling me. Okay, you said nothing. It's not your fault. You didn't kill them, right? Whoa. That's not appropriate. You started to cry. You were so angry. Thank you for telling me. I did want to know, and now I do. Thank you for listening, Richie. If there's anything else you want to know, all you have to do is ask. We'll do our best to answer any questions you have.
Are you okay?
How are you feeling now? Are you going to be okay? Lee watched you closely, as though judging how exactly she should react to what's going on. I feel fine, but you didn't mean that. You started to cry. You held back tears, but you weren't fine at all. Anger rose inside you. You definitely weren't okay. You said nothing. I feel fine. But you didn't mean it. held back tears, but you weren't fine at all. I'm not okay. We're sorry, Richie. Your moms looked at you just as sad as you felt. No one seemed to have any words after that. You need to stay here with your moms. You wanted to get out of the house. You wanted to see Elizabeth. You wanted to see Cove. I honestly don't know what to do here. I mean, different people react differently to the same information. More than anything in the moment, you wanted to see Cove. No one could be there for you the way he could. I'm gonna go out just for a little while. I'll be back before it's really late. Your mom's nodded in understanding, trusting you to make the best call for yourself. Lee's footsteps echoed from behind, and you knew she was following you. You encouraged her, you said nothing. Can you stay, Lee? I want to go by myself.
Oh.
Okay, I'll wait here for you. I'll wait for you here. But I really hope you'll be alright, Richie. Once outside, you strode across the street purposefully, Cove's house set in your sights. After you raised a hand to knock on the door, it only took a few moments for Mr. Holden to answer and giving you a broad smile. Cliff's face suddenly fell suddenly. He could tell something was wrong, but he didn't say anything else. Instead, he looked back towards the hallway where you knew Cove's room was located. Cove, Richie's here. After calling for his son, he turned back to you an encouraging thumbs up. He won't be long. As promised, it didn't take long before footsteps echoed down the hall, and Cove's head of green hair appeared before you all. Richie? Cove pushed past his dad to stand with you outside the door, watching you with concern etched all over his face. You kids be safe. If you need anything, you know where to find me. He gave you a kind smile before softly shutting the front door, giving you some privacy. Cove stepped closer still, spoke cautiously.
What's wrong?
There's a lot going on right now. It's nothing. I didn't speak to him. I needed to talk to you. My parents are dead. I needed to talk to you. Cove's forehead furrowed in concern at your words. Well, I'm here. You can tell me. My mom and dad who gave birth to me, they're dead. Without having to say anything, Cove reached out and pulled you into a tight embrace, his familiar warmth enveloping you. I'm sorry, Richie. His words were whispered comfortingly into your shoulder. You started to cry, you took a step back from him. You don't have to do this. I'm okay. You know, let it all out, man. Let it all out. You pressed your face into the crook of his neck, unable to stop the tears. The hold he had on you tightened. Can we talk somewhere else? You felt comfortable huddling around the entrance of Cove's house. Yeah, but you felt uncomfortable huddling around the entrance of Cove's house. That feeling didn't seem to be a problem, though. Yeah. Cove took you by the arm and encouraged you to walk behind him. You followed without protest. You headed towards the hills, where you and Lee had spent the majority of your day. Things seemed so different then. Only a couple of hours ago, you wondered how everything had changed so drastically. You took a seat in the grass beside Cove, who bent his legs and rested his arms on them before he turned to you again. Can you explain everything to me? You nodded softly before taking a heavy breath and launching into the story. Cove sat quietly and listened attentively, nodding every now and then, or taking a sharp inhale. It took a long time for you to relay the details. Dozens of stars were pinpointed in the sky as the night wore on. Silence settled between you as Cove sat quietly for a moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet, drifting through the night towards you. Richie.
I'm so sorry.
I'm really sorry about what happened to your parents. So sorry. He stopped suddenly and took in a deep, shaky breath. You got the impression that he was struggling with what was right to say. I'm sad I'll never get to know them. I feel bad that I don't feel worse about it. You're so mad. You shrugged your shoulders, not knowing how to feel. I'm sad I'll never get to know them. I'll never find out what they're doing or what they were like as people. It's just all gone. Richie, you're not doing anything wrong. You know that, right? I think that you can be as sad as you want for as long as you need, or you can feel okay about it whenever you want to. He sighed and ran a hand through his hair as he looked out over the ocean.
It's okay.
I guess what I'm trying to say is, whatever you feel about it is how you feel about it. You don't have to force yourself to be different. Thank you, Cove. His words had made you feel better, and you knew it was true. You didn't have to apologize or make any excuses for the way you felt about it all. Cove smiled at you a little, and you could tell he was trying to be comforting. Your moms definitely don't. It doesn't matter if you're not blood related. You're definitely family. You're definitely family. I can see that, and I hope you can too. You felt the reassurance in his eyes. You stayed up on the hill together a little longer, looking out over the ocean, the stars that shone brightly above. After talking about the situation with someone who wasn't directly a part of it, you started to see things in a different light. Above all, you were glad to have Cove's support, and to know you could count on him if you needed it. Hey, the sudden voice of your sister behind you made you jump. You saw her standing a little way away. She walked closer. You didn't quite know what to do, or what she was planning on saying.
So?
Would you mind going? I want to talk to just Richie. You can come back. It's not going to be forever or anything. Cove seemed equal parts concerned and skeptical. Leaving now wasn't a concept that thrilled him. Can I ask that? You nodded your head in agreement. I want to talk to you too. If she wanted to talk to you in private, it was obviously about something important. You waited until the two of you were alone before fixing her with an inquisitive look. Elizabeth folded her arms, looking you over. Did moms tell you about your parents too? My birth parents also died. Elizabeth broke eye contact after that.
Sorry.
Why did you want to talk to me? Elizabeth raised an eyebrow at the question, as though the answer should be obvious. I was worried about you. I was the one who brought it up, but I made you deal with whatever was left when I was gone. She sighed, glancing upward for a moment before settling on you once more. I wanted to ask you what happened, without everyone breathing down your necks. It's pretty crappy if you're just pale. I'm amazed you noticed that was unkind. Thank you for thinking of me. I'm not mad at you. You were quietly surprised at her admission. I'm not mad at you. She stuck her nose up a little at that, but her smile was soft. All of this, it upset me. She slipped back into a scowl. I'm sorry, Richie. It's a pretty depressing topic. Yeah. You have to be born in the US to become president. What? You had never heard of that dream of hers before. She noticed your bafflement and continued. I get I was never gonna be president, but it just feels weird having stuff taken away and not even getting a chance at it. I don't I don't like having to know that when I was born I was gonna have a completely different life. So different I can't even think about what it looked like in my head. I could have spoken another language, lived away from everything I've ever seen here, had someone else as my sibling. And and then my parents died and I was adopted and the life I got became a totally new thing forever. I can't go back to what it was even if I wanted to. Having this settle between you and the person who became your sister, you knew exactly how she felt. You don't really understand. I feel like that too. You knew exactly how she felt. It was a confusing feeling to have lived one way for as long as you can remember, but not having it be what was originally yours. Elizabeth watched you seriously. She was still trying to make sense of this to you and herself. I don't know why today was a day. Nothing came up to make me ask a question. It was just something I had in my head for a while. When it was just me and Mom's in the living room, I just kind of said it finally, and there you go. She shifted from one foot to the other, relaxing her stance just a bit. She also spoke more gently. Learning about them and what happened doesn't change how I feel about our family, Richie. She smirked, fixing you with sharp eyes. I'd already figured out a long time ago that moms weren't our biological parents. That wasn't news. Technically, one of them could have been related to you. It really doesn't change anything. You kept listening. Just keep listening. Nothing about the family I was first born in would have made me decide that this wasn't my family anymore. If you had hoped you'd be free of my big sisterly status, you don't think you're so lucky. She bumped her shoulder against yours playfully, her lips tilted at the corners.
You'll always be my little brother.
Oh, that's adorable. You jokingly groaned at the prospect. You bumped her back. You hugged her. You know what? Come here. Bring it in. It took a few seconds, but she gave you a quick squeeze in return. I think I'm really lucky you took in the moment quietly. You'll always be my family too. I think I'm really lucky. Chuckling, she seemed pleased with how the conversation had gone in the end. Ready to head back home? It's been a long day. You gave her a nod. Come on, you two. Let's go. You walked home together in a comfortable silence down the well-worn street. The familiarity of it all felt nice. When you stepped through the door, you found your moms quietly sitting together at the kitchen table. Their heads snapped up, and they got up to their feet to meet you, Ma giving you a careful smile. We're so glad to see you. Right? Everything is alright? You said nothing. I'm sorry for walking away before. It's alright, sweetheart. We're just happy to have you here again. Marlon came over and wrapped her arms around you and Elizabeth, giving you a tight hug. It didn't take long for Mom to join in, putting her arms around the both of you.
Love you.
Oh, we really couldn't have asked for better kiddos. We love you. More than we could ever say. Moms. You're smooshing me. You're so glad your moms were alright. I love you too. You let them hug you for as long as they needed, and it was a nice moment shared between you. They both pulled back eventually and grinned at the two of you. And you knew then that you all had each other, and you always would. Lee! Hey, I hope you're alright. Lee came up towards you, and a soft smile plastered on her face. And are you okay, Elizabeth? Elizabeth rolled her eyes and huffed a breath, and you knew she wasn't used to showing her vulnerable side.
Fine.
I'm doing fine. Lee nodded, though you could tell she didn't quite believe her. Well now, since we're all here, how about we do something together as a family? That sounds like an excellent idea. We should have some fun before the night's over. Totally! I love the sound of that! Okay. Oh, I forgot Cove was still here. Cove looked a little bashful, likely over being included as part of the family, but he tried not to pay much attention to it. Why not? Why not? You hit the smile that threatened to tilt your lips, knowing that Elizabeth must have been in a good mood if she hadn't even teased Cove for being part of it. And no matter what she could have said about it, if you wanted him to be here. He was someone who was really important to you. Aww, who's got a suggestion? It should be something we can do here in the house with everyone in the same room. You suddenly remembered the show that you and Lee had been working on earlier. You were bummed you never got to do all of that. You were so keen on that now after what happened. Maybe we can do our show.
Oh.
A show? This is the first time we're hearing about this. I'm intrigued.
Wonderful.
It would be amazing if you put it on for us to watch. Oh yeah, I need to see what you've cooked up. That'd be cool. You smiled at Lee, who returned the gesture while bouncing on her heels in excitement. Take some seats and we'll get everything together. Your moms collected the chairs and from around the dining table and set them in a row in the living room, where there wasn't enough space for the show. While they did that, you and Lee quickly gathered the supplies you needed and rehashed the plan one last time. You went through the song you had written one last time. You collected your instrument from your room, making sure it was ready to go. When the two of you returned to the living room, everyone was sitting and chatting amongst themselves while they waited. The group quieted down when you and Lee stood in front of them on your makeshift stage. Lee was buzzing quietly with excitement beside you. You felt nervous all of a sudden. You were pumped for the show. You were unsure how to feel. I guess pumped up. The time you and Lee had put into practicing was worth it. You were ready to go. Okay, so welcome to our show. We only came up with it today, but we promise it'll be good. No refunds. You're gonna be real. Thank you for being here tonight. Your moms gave you a thumbs up and encouragement, ready for the performance. Then you nodded at Lee that you were ready to begin. Oh, whoops. Lee took took in a deep breath, weighing the few beats it took to get into the song and started singing. You concentrated hard on hitting the right notes with the trumpet. It made you proud to have the lyrics you had written sung like this. When the performance was over, Lee took your hands in hers and the two of you bowed deeply together. Everyone gave you a round of applause and cheered for an encore. When you straightened yourself up, you were happy to see that even Elizabeth was clapping for you. Bravo, bravo!
Good job.
You were so talented. Your family rose from their seats and came over to congratulate you more directly. You were beaming from ear to ear. Tove was the first one to approach, stepping up to you and Lee with a smile on his face.
It's nice.
Nice job. Thank you. You're a really great musician, Richie. It was cool. You blushed and said nothing. Luckily we had a crowd who was easily impressed. Thanks. I was pretty good, huh? I was pretty good, huh? And you're humble, too. You laughed together, feeling as light as a feather. Hey, were you the one that wrote that song? Yeah, that was me. Ko smiled, content over his guess being correct.
Not bad.
I thought so. It was good. You couldn't help but feel flattered when he could recognize your talents so easily. Your parents gushed about how great everything was and thanked you for sharing it with them. Elizabeth was complimentary in her own way, although she did describe the show as cute, which you knew she meant it as kind of kiddie. You laughed it off, however, and were just happy that everyone had a nice time. In the moment, you couldn't have been more pleased to be part of the family you had. Aww, that was so sweet. That's probably one of the sweetest things in this game. Come on, it can't possibly get any sweeter from here, could it? Alright, next memory. Dinner. Sunlight shone through the windows as you sat in the living room. Your home phone pressed to your ear. Ko was on the other end. It'd be shaping up to be an ordinary day, like any other, until Ko had called unexpectedly. He sounded unusually nervous greeting you. You listened silently as he kept talking, his words stilted. So, I was just, wondering, do you want to come over to my house for dinner tonight? The question came out strangely, almost like he'd rehearsed it a few times beforehand. Your eyes widened a little. You hadn't expected this to be the reason behind the call. Kept listening. Yeah, I'll go.
That's,
It was... Huh? Oh. It seemed like Ko still had more to say, and you just interrupted him. Oops. Luckily we can go back. You kept listening. Ko continued. His next words sounded rehearsed too, and tinged with nervousness. My mom and dad, they really want you to be here. If your parents don't have a problem with it, they asked me to ask you. You took a moment to think. Dinner at home would be quiet and uneventful today. If you really wanted to, you could go to Kobe's instead. Kobe spoke up again, breaking your train of thought. His voice was softer than before. Also, I want you to be there too. Can you come over, I mean? Can't make it. Why am I the only one invited, or did you mean the whole family? Yeah, I can come. Thanks, Richie. I'll let them know when I can. He sounded noticeably relieved by your response. Was you coming over for dinner today that serious? He spoke to you in a little while longer to explain what time to come over and other details, then hung up. And that was that. For now, anyway. Soon enough, the sun had dipped out of the sky, and evening came. It was time for you to head to Kobe's house. After letting Elizabeth know you were leaving, she didn't look away from the TV. She just grunted. You made a small journey across the street. You knocked a couple of times on the heavy door to their condo. As you waited for the answer, you found yourself contemplating being a guest while both of Ko's parents were there. Apprehensive, the idea made you curious. You didn't think it would be especially interesting. You couldn't say you were thrilled. You were apprehensive. It was exciting. The idea made you curious. You wondered why they decided to invite you out of the blue. Maybe you'd find out later tonight? You didn't get too much time with your thoughts, though. The door opened soon enough. Ko's mom, Kyra, stood in the frame, smiling warmly at you.
come on.
Hey, Richie. Welcome. Please, come on in. She opened the door wider and moved to make room. You stepped inside, allowing her to shut it behind you. Thanks so much for coming over. I knew it was kind of last second. Thank you for having me.
Of course.
Just make yourself at home. It's not my home, but I've been given permission to say that. Hey, Richie. Welcome to our humble abode. You jerked your head towards the sound of Mr. Holden's voice. He waved at you briefly from the kitchen, with his back turned and a large spoon in hand. Hope you're hungry, because I'm whipping up a lot of tasty stuff. True to his word, you heard something sizzling on the stove. You closed your eyes and inhaled. It smelled spicy and savory. How does this game know that I love spicy stuff? Like, okay, the thing is, I actually love spicy food. It's one of my favorite kinds of foods to eat. With Mr. Holden busy and Cove nowhere to be seen, it was just you and Kyra. She gave you a wry smile. He sure is. While I've been barred from cooking the entire time I'm staying here. Can you believe that? She nudged you with an elbow. Mr. Holden scoffed good-naturedly, then spoke from over his shoulder. You're on vacation, Kyra. You need to accept that already. She yelled back, amusement obvious on her face and in her tone. People still cook when they're on vacation. Everyone's gotta eat. It's not like I'm some celebrity who can go out for every meal and hire a private chef.
Sorry.
Well, in this house, you're a VIP. Honestly, I'm kind of regretting not asking on why they were divorced. I kind of wanted to know. Kara smiled and shook her head quietly. Then she turned to face you once more. Sorry about that, Reggie. Here I was trying to strike up a conversation with you and Cliff just had to butt in. I don't butt in. She eyed him, chuckling in disbelief. He wasn't exactly disproving her point with that. Kara leaned over to whisper to you. It's okay. He likes to be included. But Clifford is Cove's dad. Oh, I thought when they said Clifford, I thought that was like Cove's actual first name, but Cove was just a nickname. Nope, Clifford's just Mr. Holden's name. Yeah, that makes sense. But since Clifford insists on cooking all by himself, he'll have to wait. The two of us can chat. Her next question continued to be said in a hushed tone, just to be safe. So, how are you doing? I'm good. Things are okay. Not really sure you didn't reply to a question. I'm good. Kara didn't seem too convinced by your awkward phrasing, but she nodded anyway. She opened her mouth to say something more, but some lightly pounding footsteps caught your attention. You checked to see Cove emerge from the hallway a few moments later. He might have heard all the commotion and left his room to see what was going on. You quickly took stock of the situation. His cheeks tinted pink at the sight of you, standing in his living room, and his hand came up to rub his arm almost bashfully. Richie, you made it. Thanks for coming. Cove's voice was unnaturally loud, as if he thought you wouldn't be able to hear him from where you were, only a few feet away. Hi, Cove. You doing okay? Yeah, I'm fine. He didn't sound convincing at all. You narrowed your eyes suspiciously, but didn't call him out on it. If you could talk to him alone tonight, maybe you'd ask him what was going on then. It was when you glanced away from Cove that you spotted his parents watching the two of you interact. Cove noticed their stares too, meeting them with narrow eyes.
So,
Are we having dinner now? Not yet, bud. I'm still cooking. Alright, I'm gonna go back to my room. As he turned to leave, he bent his head to the side to face you. You coming? The question was quiet, but you heard it clearly. He smiled and pleased that he asked and nodded in affirmation. Cove turned fully and made his way down the hall. Have fun, you two. We'll call you when food's ready to go. With that, you followed after Cove. The two of you made your way down the hall. This was the first time you were invited to see Cove's room. You had visited Cove's room before, but only rarely. Going over to Cove's room was a standard occurrence for you nowadays. I'd probably say this would probably be the first time I've actually seen it. Cove got to the door first, opening it and stepping inside. You joined him. Whoa! Okay, first of all, really cool room. There was a mat on the floor in front of the door. As you stepped over the threshold of his room, you felt the crunch of sand beneath your feet. You glanced down. Sand was clustered around the entrance. You even spotted smaller amounts of it dusting the rest of the room's floor. Though you hadn't anticipated it, you weren't surprised at the sight. Of course, Beach Boy Cove Holden would get his room all sandy. So, this is my room. Cove was a bit shy as he said so, fidgeting with the hem of his shirt, using one hand and vaguely gesturing to the space with the other. There's stuff you can sit on if you want. You look over at the desk chair as an option. When you turn back, Cove was already sitting at the edge of a large bed. Are you trying to make your own beach with all this sand? It's nice. Thanks for letting me come over. You weren't sure what to do. Thanks for letting me come over. I should be the one thanking you. You furrowed your brows at his shifty reaction to everything, but you could tell he wasn't in the mood to talk about it right now. Let's go ahead and sit down in the chair. Why not? There was a desk chair in the room for a reason, after all. You walked over to it, rolled it out, taking a seat on it. It was stiff against your butt and creaked each time you shifted. He definitely used his bed space more often than this. Well, too late to complain now. You just have to deal with it. Ko frowned. He was actually disappointed you picked the chair. He might have hoped you'd be closer. You smiled comfortingly at him. You chuckled over it. You were nervous about that. You felt very charmed by his reaction. You smiled comfortingly at him. He raised his eyebrows. You both kept noticing that the other's every move. You're such a sweet guy. You're such a sweet guy, Cove. You always shrug back. It's nothing. You're like an open book, you know that. You're adorable. You're adorable. I mean, is it not true? Is it not true that he's adorable? Because he is. You're like an open book, you know that? I'm not. R2. Cope scowled before shifting nervously on the bed. He pointedly glanced away from you, the tips of his ears red. With sounds growing, your gaze began to drift. You stared at the bright fish swimming in the tank. There were a bunch of them, floating to and fro in the open space. They stood out starkly against the green aquaria plants. How long have you had those fish? My dad bought them for me not very long after I moved here. I guess it's been years now. Wow, that's a long time. You peered carefully into the tank. The fish looked to be doing well. He must take good care of them. Most of them were small, but there was one especially big one. What are their names? I don't name them. Well, not really. He lifted an eyebrow at that. You continued the explanation sheepishly. Mostly I call them things based on what they look like. Squirt for a small one, tangerine for a really orange one, that sort of thing. I had a lot of fish. I'm not that good at coming up with names. I found it funny, surprising, relatable. Relatable. You didn't have any pets, but you always had trouble naming your stuffed animals, or whatever else. It was such a hard choice. Oh, a couple of them have other types of names. He pointed to a small orangish red fish. It was minding its own business, away from the others. My dad named her Dreamcatcher, and that other one's Mark. Mom came up with that one. Koba smiled to himself, his eyes reflecting the glow from the tank. You let other people name your fish?
Nice.
Yeah, it's nice. He then turned to you, tilting his head to the side. There was a considering look on his face. Do you want to name one? Can I? He gave you a little... his smile grew a little at your interest. Sure. There's a few that don't have names right now, the newer ones. You can pick which one you want to name. He pointed each of the recent acquisition ones out to you. The first was the smallest fish in the tank. It was completely orange and zipped all over the place, rained laps around the others. The second was slightly bigger and red. His tail was dotted with black spots, which almost resembled freckles? The last fish was the biggest one. Its multicolored scales rippled under the bright light of the tank as it slowly made its way across the vast expanse. You went with... Um, let's go with the smallest one. Cove only nodded at your answer, waiting on you to decide what on a suitable name. Okay, I can already think of what it could be. You watched the fish you chose closely. As you did, a name eventually came to you. Frank, Sunbeam, Gil, Richie, Cove. Type in your own answer. Ooh, honestly, Sunbeam's not that bad of a name. You just call him Frank. Gil seems like a standard fish name. Um, you know what? Let's go with Sunbeam. Why not? Cove laughed unreservedly at your choice. It was affectionate rather than insulting. You name things like my dad. All right, it's Sunbeam. With that, his attention moved from you to the tank. He peered fondly at it and its inhabitants. He smiled proudly at Sunbeam as it swam through the tendrils of the plants, disappearing and then reappearing soon after. You know, I'm not allowed to have pets in my house, not even fish. The corners of Cove's lips turned down at that. That doesn't sound fair. It's not like fish would make a mess in your house or anything. You just gotta take care of their tank, feed them, and they'll be okay. I don't mind it too much. You have to do so much for a pet. It's a lot of work and responsibility. My moms take it super seriously, and that's why they don't want to just get one. That's true. Your current conversation brought to mind a memory from years ago. You launched into it without any warning, earning you a brief confused look from Cove. One time, Elizabeth, came back from playing at the beach and just shut herself in her room. Oh! She only came down for food and then ran back upstairs straight after. It was kind of weird. My mom didn't think much of it at first thought. But then that night, Mom went to her room to say goodnight and started screaming. Mom and I ran over to see what happened, and Lizzie had this huge lizard in her arms. Cove's eyebrows rose at that, and he leaned forward in interest. A lizard? Where'd that come from? Elizabeth said she saw it half buried in the sand and didn't know what it was. Then she pulled it out and got the answer. So she brought it home. She hid the lizard in her room, and for most of the day, because she wanted to keep it. Mom and Ma were not happy. They worried about putting it out during the night, but she was going to have to let it go in the morning. Lizzie was really upset. She did bring it back to the beach eventually, but she wouldn't talk to anyone for days. When she did get over it, it was almost like it never happened. You laughed, thinking back at the time. To that time, Elizabeth had always been stubborn, but when she was younger, she forgot grudges quickly. Now it wasn't so easy. Cove had been quiet for most of the story, apart from the reveal of the lizard. He had a thoughtful look on his face. I can't even imagine what it'd be like to have a sibling. You gave a serious thought on the statement before you told him. There are ups and downs. You're lucky to be an only child. It's a nice idea in general, but my sister is Elizabeth. I don't know how to explain what it's like. I'd probably say it's fun. When we were younger, Lizzie and I played together with our parents. When our parents were too busy. I probably would have been really bored if I didn't have her. Cove pursed his lips at the words, considering them quietly for a while. That's interesting. I think your family is cool. He didn't have much else to say, though while you're on the topic of your family, you consider your relationship with your moms too. You get along with your moms, you thought they were okay, you found your moms to be difficult to deal with. They were absolutely the best. Come on, they have to be the best, right? You couldn't even possibly consider having another option. You couldn't have better parents. Well, say what you want about them, but at least your mom's never tried to pay someone to be your friend. The thought prompted you to look over at Cove. You probably still didn't know what that happened. You doubted that Mr. Holden mentioned it and you never had. And you wondered if you should tell him. It was a long time ago, but you were keeping a secret from Cove. You didn't tell him it was a bad time. You didn't tell him you weren't sure how he would react. You decided to tell him. You didn't tell him you didn't want to have that talk with Cove. You didn't tell him secrets are meant to be kept. Literally, my choices are like, don't tell him, don't tell him, don't tell him, don't tell him, tell him. You didn't tell him. It was a bad time. You could bring it up some other day when the moment was right. Time passed, but you didn't really notice. The two of you were busy making plans for the rest of the summer and chatting about your respective days. Eventually, you heard a muffled holler from a different part of the house. You and Cove raised your heads in unison. It's time for dinner. Cove watched the firmly shut door that had been locked behind them for most of the night, but he didn't make a move to get up from the bed. You couldn't see his face, but you didn't know what expression he was wearing. I'm glad you came. Cove peeked back at you from the side. It's been awkward. I get that. It's been hard on you, huh? You felt sympathetic towards him. You didn't know what he was going through, but you cared about him. Cove said nothing else and remained sat where he was. Now would be as good of a time as any to ask him why his parents so suddenly wanted you to come over. Is there a reason they wanted me to come over tonight? It hasn't been awkward for just me. Sometimes it gets like this when no one else is around. But now you're here. Huh? You didn't consider that. But it sort of made sense in a way. There wasn't a shout from outside, too muffled to actually know the words, but you could imagine what they were. Let's go. Cove finally got up, lumbering away with his shoulders sagged. You followed him. Together, the two of you made your way back to the living room. As you expected, Cove's parents were politely waiting for you at the kitchen table, beside the windows overlooking the back of the house. Food had been prepared and set. Mr. Holden beamed as you and Cove took your places. I hope everyone's hungry. I cooked up a feast. Yeah. I know I am. Yeah. Cove's mumbled response wasn't nearly as upbeat as theirs. His parents didn't notice, or they pretended not to. Mr. Holden instead looked at you, grinning.
Thanks.
Let's all take a moment to thank our special guest for being with us here tonight. I'm so glad you were able to make it, Richie. And on such short notice, too. You're so awkward about the situation. You thank Cove's parents back for inviting you. I'm happy to be here. Thank you both for inviting me.
Alright.
Well, that's it. Everyone please dig in. You can help yourselves to the food. Upon his encouragement, you looked over the meal spread out in front of you. There was a large garden salad in the center, surrounded by a variety of Mexican dishes. There were a lot of sides and optional sauces to add. I can work with this. You didn't mind Mexican food. Mom loved it, so you ate it as family often. In a way, it made your first dinner at the Holden house feel a bit more normal. Utensils and plates scraped and clinked together as the group began to fill in their plates. Cliff, could you pass the salsa verde? Of course.
Thanks.
Thank you. Just let me just say, you really outdid yourself tonight. I'm so jealous. Jealous of what? Your cooking's nothing to sneeze at, Kyra. Cove's parents made small talk, filling the silence with what seemed to be barely any effort. You chimed in as well. Did it take you a long time to cook all this, Mr. Holden? Oh, not at all. Sure, this is more than I usually make for me and Cove, but I enjoyed every second of it. Maybe have gone faster if you had some help, though. Cove's mom grumbled with a light heart. Well, it was light-hearted. Mr. Holden chuckled and shook his head. Not this again. I make the rules here, and I say guests don't cook. Even when they're staying for literal weeks?
Come on.
Even then. Everything looks great, Dad, as always. Thanks, Sport. Glad you think so. Cove smiled. It was genuine, even if it was strained at the corners. Brief silences interspersed with the small talk. You piled some food on your plate, waiting for your turn if someone was serving themselves a dish that you had your eye on. Once the food had been divided and, and things settled down, Cove's parents started talking again. Now then, you sat up in your seat when you noticed they were both looking at you.
How's it going?
How has everything been over at your house? Are your moms well? You've been keeping busy this summer. Or maybe you're just trying to take it easy during the break. You were overwhelmed by a sudden rush of questions. You were more than happy to answer. Surprised, but you didn't mind the interest. You were surprised, but you didn't mind the interest. Why not? You hadn't expected so many questions all at once. Still, what else was there to talk about apart from how the summer was going? You answered how things were at your house. Is what you said, but you didn't mean it. It's been good.
Fantastic.
Oh, that's wonderful. Mention how your moms are doing. They're the same as always. Work is a little stressful, but they say it's normal grown-up stuff and nothing to worry about. I know too well what that's like, unfortunately. I'm not sure where to start. There's so much that happened. Mr. Holden's brows raised when you answered with that. You sure are keeping yourself busy. You could learn a thing or I could learn a thing or two from you. And that was it. Kara nodded along. You could tell she was actually listening to the words you were saying. She was trying to include you, not humor you. Did you know, Cliff? Richie is really into writing. Mr. Holden's face lit up. He stopped eating so he could lean forward. His arms braced against the table.
Nice work.
Oh, that's right. Very cool. It's just a hobby. There's nothing wrong with that. It's good to do things just for fun. Everyone needs a hobby. I've been thinking of picking up wood carving myself. You couldn't tell how serious he was about that declaration. Thanks. Cole's parents were definitely the encouraging type, but you could already tell that much about them. There was a lull in the conversation as everyone focused their attention on their respective plates. You noted not for the first time that Cole's parents were the ones guiding the conversation. You wondered if you should break the silence this time. You know what? Let's bring our own conversation. Why not? I also like other things. Would you like to tell us more?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. They looked genuinely eager for you to keep talking, so you did. The rest of your dinner continued just like that, with light conversations as you ate your meals. Eventually, all the dishes on the kitchen table were pretty much gone. Kara set down her fork and rested her arms at her sides, letting loose a satisfied sigh. Her plate was completely empty. That was delish. Thank you for your culinary creations, Cliff. Mr. Holden was like a flower soaking up the rays of the sun. He beamed flattered by the praise. You ate way too much. He actually is blushing. I just noticed that. You ate until you were satisfied. I think that was good. It had taken you some time to finish it all, but eventually you'd clear your plate. Ko successfully kept his presence to a minimum for the full meal. He was slumped over, even now toying with his silverware. The parents practically only talked to you. Most attempts to entice him to join the conversation failed. It wasn't typical for him to say so little. He at least tried to participate. You didn't get much time to contemplate Co's situation because your attention was taken by Mr. Holden pointedly clearing his voice. It's not to sound like a broken record, but thanks for coming, Richie. I'm glad we finally got this chance to have you over for a real dinner.
What?
Did I hear that right? This is the first time Richie has ever had dinner here? Why in the world haven't you invited him over sooner? Cove was always the one going over to Richie's house until now. I mean, how was I supposed to reject the generous offers of the James family to host my kid? Kara shook her head, but the amused smile was sport she was sporting told you that she wasn't actually mad. This guy, honestly. Oh. Okay, actually, now that I actually look at Cove and Kyra side by side, like the shades of green in their hair is a little bit different. Like her green is like more of like a vibrant green. His is like more of a seaweed green of sorts. Well, like not seaweed, but what was it, like emerald? I want to say like emerald green, probably. The three of you looked at Cove in unison. His small sound being more than enough to get the focus on him after his silence. By now, he'd stopped fiddling with his fork. Would it be alright for Richie to stay over, like for the night? He shot a shy glance and smiling a little. If you're cool with that. Mr. Holden's shoulders stiffened. He sat up straighter, eyes darting back and forth between you and Cove. His mouth opened, but not a peep came out. You'd never seen Cove's dad say no to him before, but this was different than the usual request. It wasn't so simple, and Mr. Holden was lost. Then Cove's mom reached out and took a hold of his shirt collar. He pulled him closer. She glanced at you, but before leaning in and bringing a hand up in front of their faces, the two adults whispered to each other seriously at each other. Cove's eyes opened wider. He leaned forward as if that would help him overhear his parents' conversation. Mr. Holden kept gesturing with his hands while Kyra made sure he didn't get too far away from all his movements. Every now and then, both of them would watch you and Cove out of the corner of their eyes. It didn't seem like they were fighting to you. They looked more like some kind of tiny sports team having private huddle. After a bit, they broke the group up. They moved back to sit properly on their chairs. You snuck a look at Cove. He stared at them expectantly. You were eager to hear their verdict too. Kyra and I think that should be fine. But he lifted a finger dramatically, his brows raising to meet Cove's gaze and then your own. We'll have to talk with Richie's parents to make sure they'd be comfortable with it. If they are, we can arrange a sleepover to happen on a different night when everyone is more prepared. If Richie's folks don't like the idea, there's nothing we can do. He finished his mini speech with a wide shrug, using his full arms. He also checked out Kyra from the corner of his eye and gave her a crooked smile. She nodded approvingly and grinned back. You thought you saw her give him a thumbs up, but her hand was partially blocked by the table. They looked so pleased themselves over the answer, but they just passed the actual decision on whether it was alright or not to someone else, namely your parents. If this was a sports game, they would have punted the ball away. They probably would have. Cove hung his head, deflated. He had been hoping you could stay over today, not some hypothetical time in the future. You gave him words of encouragement. He kind of, I'll sneak the phone into my room tonight. Hey, you could always sneak into my room again. You pouted about it too. And let's give him some words of encouragement. Cheer up, Cove. I'm still right here now, aren't I? And things will work out somehow. Though he still appeared upset, the corners of his lips lifted a little in appreciation of your comfort. With that, dinner finally came to an end. Mr. Holden stood up from the table and began collecting empty plates. Cove was asked to help out, which he did with little fuss. Kyra tried to lend a hand as well, however Mr. Holden didn't let her. It seems she was barred from cleaning as well as cooking. You weren't allowed to chip in either, since you were there as declared guest of honor. Although the meal was over, the night wasn't. It looked like you weren't going home just yet after all. You were asked to wait on the couch. While Cove and his dad were cleaning up the mess, Kyra disappeared down the hall after shooting you a wink. It was a bit strange, sitting by yourself while everyone else had something to do. Luckily, you weren't alone for too long. After a couple of minutes, Cove's mom returned with a deck of cards in hand. She strolled into the room confidently while shuffling. So, who's up for a few rounds? Cove and his dad looked over their shoulders at the question. They were mutually intrigued by the cards in her hands. She beamed at their expressions and stepped further into the living room, ignoring the couches and sat cross-legged on the floor by the coffee table. She turned to you and gestured at the space beside her, smiling invitingly. You accepted and followed her lead. The living room carpet was soft, though the hardwood floor underneath could definitely still be felt. Kyra did an overhand shuffle while she waited for the others to finish their tasks. The smile had yet to leave her lips.
Great.
This is going to be good. Excited, nervous, bored, annoyed, enjoyed her enthusiasm. I was excited. I'd probably be excited. I like card games. You enjoyed card games. It would be fun to play with Cove and his parents. It didn't take much longer for Cove and his dad to wrap things enough to call it good. Cove's dad appeared first, followed closely by Cove. Mr. Holden rubbed his hands together in anticipation. All right, I'm ready. As he took a seat across from you on the floor, you noticed that Cove hadn't joined him. He went straight down the hall instead, without even a word. You stared on confused as he disappeared through the bedroom door. Cove's parents didn't look concerned at the stunt. Kyra nonchalantly split the deck of cards in two and riffled the halves together while offering an explanation of sorts. Cove doesn't keep his wallet in his room when at home. He puts it away. What? Cove quickly returned to the living room, a black wallet in his hand. He took a place on the floor of the table with the rest of you. You blinked at Cove as Cove unzipped the wallet. You all use real money on card games with family? While you sat there, your hands idle in your lap, the three shot looks at one another and size each other up. That's right, $5 per round per person. Winner takes all. Ah, so they're gamblers, huh? Go big or go home. Oh, are you planning on kicking Richie to the curb, or do you intend on donating to the guest of honor's pot, Mr. High Roller? Mr. Holden narrowed his eyes and leaned back against the side of the couch, completely at ease.
No worries.
If Richie wants to play, I'll fund his way in. Don't you worry about that. He rested his arms across the top of the knee that he propped up. Cove's dad was acting slick in a way you'd never seen before. You appreciated his offer. You joked that he shouldn't be so confident. You felt awkward about the situation. His surety was pretty appealing. You ignored it. You joked that he shouldn't feel so confident. Are you sure? Add and me could be spelling your doom. Right you are, Richie. I hope you can back that attitude up. I know I can, Kyra. You can let me pay for Richie. He's my friend. Mr. Holden grinned with a chuckle.
Good.
All right, bud, I concede. You're too polite for me. Well, you got your ticket. Interested in throwing in? You glanced around, and this seems like a serious business. In response to your consternation, Kyra softened to her competitive smile. Don't worry too much. We'll probably just do some rounds of Go Fish tonight. No biggie.
Do you mind?
What do you think? Of course we're gonna join in. Why wouldn't we? I'd love to play. Mr. Holden gave you a big thumbs up while Cove nodded firmly back. I'd probably say you left it all to luck. You're always bad at it. Yeah. Let's just say I'm really good at it. I'm not. In reality, I'm not that great at it, but let's just say I was. You usually won when you played with your own family, to the point Elizabeth refused to play the game with you anymore. Fantastic. We'll play for however long everyone wants to keep going, or until people start running out of cash, but are still refusing to quit when they're behind. Speaking for yourself, I see. With a laugh, Kyra nudged you nudged you using an elbow, then motioned towards the other two with her chin. Don't be fooled by their soft faces. These boys are sharks. In reaction to her words, Mr. Holden smirked, and Co's eyebrows became more angled. Kara's phrasing made you think back to when you were young, specifically of Mr. Holden's favorite shark pants that he used to wear all the time. Perhaps they had been a fit for him in ways that you didn't know of. You could feel tension in the air. Cove and his parents glued their eyes on one another. Then all placed $5 bills on an empty space in front of them. Cove dropped an extra one for you, giving you a tiny smile after he did. Aw. Once this was done, Kyra began to deal out the cards to everybody. It was time to begin. The first round came and went quickly, with the group getting into the groove of things. You won right away, which meant you had all the money to keep playing for the second round. You're a natural. Nicely done. You better keep those wits about you for the next round, though. As the night went on, so did the games. Mr. Holden would jokingly shake his fist whenever someone other than him got a pair. Oh wait, are we playing poker now? Kyra acted as news anchor, reporting on every move everyone made by speaking in her curled fist. Cove was still a few words, but now it was because he was focused on the game instead of being overcome with awkwardness. Most of the time, you even spotted a smile on his lips. You won it. You won quite a few games, but to your delight, you had a hefty money pile on your side of the table. You must regret paying Richie's way in now, huh? No way. Richie might be beating me, but he's also beating you two. Ko turned towards you and smiled, looking pleased at your ability to match his mom and dad. You grinned at him, touched by his speedy comeback. It became clear that where the money went in the moment didn't really matter. They ended up giving it back to one another in other ways, and not through more rounds of cards. You sat back, looking over the scene. A tiny smile grew on your face. Ko's family was pretty cool, you thought. You were glad you got this chance to come over and spend time with the three of them. Oh, that's really nice. That's actually really cool. I thought that was probably one of the coolest moments in this game. Oh, I love it a lot. I've been recording for an hour now, and I might want to end it here, but I don't know. I kind of want to continue. I want to keep going. I want to do the last memory so that again we don't just do the last memory and then end the summer there, because that would just be kind of an awkward way to leave it. So let's go ahead and continue with Road Trip. Even though you were awake, the sun had barely peeked its head above the horizon, and the sky above was still dark, though lightening by the minute. Usually you wouldn't be up so early. Words, Richie. Especially during the summer vacation. But today was different. Today, instead of the lazy days you were used to, everything around you, it was a flurry of activity as both your family and Co was prepared for what lay ahead. Because parked in the street just outside your house was a massive RV camper, so big you couldn't even see Co's house behind it. His parents had rented the RV for a few days to take him on a short road trip to see the Redwood National Park. You glanced at Cove, who was standing nearby taking in the scene in front of him. The prospect of the trip had to be a mixed bag for him. It was only 3 days, so it seemed he was dealing with it as best he could. Especially now that you and your family were joining them. You weren't sure how exactly that had happened. You knew your parents and Co spoke to each other pretty often. Sorry, I had to yawn. And somewhere along the way, plans were made after Cliff offered to share the space. The parents all thought it was a fantastic idea. You had already gotten a good look inside while helping to load everything in. And you had to admit that while it was a really huge car, fitting that many people inside was going to be snug.
Let's go.
Move it or lose it, kiddo. Mom bustled past with a cooler in one hand and a large bottle of water under the other. She was upbeat this early in the morning. Oh. Okay, honestly, that was a really cute robe. It honestly suits her. Ma, however, seemed to be on the other side of the wavelength. She fell behind her wife, dragging her feet on every step. I'm gonna need a whole jug of coffee once we hit the road. You could relate to Ma. It was too early. Personally, you were raring to go as your mom. You felt like you were in the middle ground between the two. Yeah, when in doubt, middle it out. You just tried to keep up and took in some deep breaths. The air was still a little damp from the dew, but you didn't mind. And then at the end of the chain came your sister. She had a bone to pick before the trip officially started. Her rattling off critiques added some level of normalcy to everything new going on. I don't get why I can't sleep in the bed tonight. Richie is the youngest, and I'll never fall asleep in that loft. We're trying to make things fair on everyone. If you want to play the older card, you should be offering to take the loft both nights. It's important for the big siblings to make sacrifices for their younger ones. Elizabeth huffed, not happy with the answer in the slightest, and folded her arms, leaning back against the side of the RV. The trip plans had been nailed down prior, the sleeping arrangements included. Elizabeth still held on to her objections with them. There was a main area of the RV with a couch, loft, and some other floor space at the end of the car was a room with a large bed. Okay, so this actually reminds me of a camping trip that I actually went on with my my buddies Marcus, Caesar, and their I keep forgetting. Is that like their uncle Ray? I think. Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure he was like their uncle or a family friend or something. I keep forgetting, but he had this RV, right? And like this is a little thing where like he has these little beds in one part of the RV, and they actually each of the beds have their own personal TV, and that's really cool. I thought it was really cool. It's very tiny, but you can still watch shows on it. It's really good. Anyways, your moms were sharing the bed. Kyra was on the couch, and father and son intended to sleep on the floor. The adults determined that you and Elizabeth would switch between the small loft above the driver's seat and sharing the bed with moms. Yeah, I was fine. Honestly, I think I'd be fine with that. As long as you had a place to rest your head of some description, it didn't bother you. Alright, you lot. Does everyone have everything they need? We're heading out in 5 minutes. Now it's time to double check. You don't want to forget something important. At the word, Elizabeth yelled and dashed back into the house, her bed head hair bouncing behind her as she went. Ma came over and gave you a smile, setting her hands on her hips. How about you, Richie? Do you have all your clothes packed? Toiletries, deodorant, floss, anything else you could think of? Oh my god, that literally just reminds me of my mom when I was younger. Like, she's like, she always like pressured me, like, make sure you have everything, Richard. Like, my god. You're confident you had it all. You weren't sure about that. Oh, you had to run back inside for something. You just gave her a flat look. You were confident you had it all. Wanted to make sure everything was organized and ready to go. You had packed the night before and set your alarm too. Yep, I'm good. That's great. We'll have to wait for the ones who weren't as organized, but we'll be heading off shortly. With a few minutes left to spare before leaving, you mentally went over what you had packed for the trip. Clothes, a pillow, and blanket. Usual day-to-day gear for most people. You also had more personal things such as... Oh, come on. You can't tell me I wouldn't. Why would I have a bag of makeup? Ball. MP3 player. With so much time going to be spent on driving in the car, you wanted to make sure you were able to have some music to put on. A portable gaming console. The drive to Redwood National Park would take an entire day one way, so You wanted to make sure you had a way to entertain yourself while traveling back there and back. Your camera, why not? It was just a little pocket camera you had gotten from your mom's, but you couldn't miss the opportunity to take some new snaps. Pencils and paper. You had prepared in case you saw something to sketch at the park, or if you had to write anything down, or if you needed to pass the time just doodling. A couple things to read. Yeah, that does sound like me. You had packed one of your old favorites and a new one you'd never tried before. You knew you'd have plenty of time for both of them in such a long drive. Okay, telling you guys, I probably would sneak a stuffed animal. Without fail, you always made sure you feel more comfortable whenever you went somewhere new. It was like taking a little piece of home away with you. I mean, I guess I probably would take... I don't think I would take a ball with me, but I probably would. It was fun to break out a ball to play around with in the field behind your house, so you thought everyone might enjoy having something to do while at the park. And that was everything. Hey, let me take that for you, Richie. I'll stow it in the RV. There's a few spots left it'll fit. You let Kyra take your bag and gave her a grateful smile. With nothing left to do, you watched the others getting ready for the trip. Kyra and Cliff seemed to have the most energy of anyone. They were finishing packing the suitcases away while your moms had gone to lock up the house. They high-fived whenever another one got crammed in the storage compartments of the vehicle. Even though your own parents were low-key, were more low-key than Cove's, you could tell that they were both excited for the trip. It had been a while since your family had been away anywhere together. Elizabeth skipped towards the RV, a bag slung over her shoulder, and you were surprised that she seemed more optimistic about the whole ordeal now. Usually she wasn't one to exit the confines of her room, unless it was for TV or food or to leave her family behind to be with her friends. You would have thought 3 whole days packed in an RV with 6 others would be too much for her, but it was a nice surprise. You supposed any vacation was better than no vacation in her mind. Cove had been pretty quiet so far, and more than anything seemed to be overwhelmed by the situation. You were excited, you weren't very excited, you were eager, curious about the RV. You didn't feel much either way about the plans. I mean, I'd probably be very excited for the trip. It was great to get away and explore new places. Soon the miscellaneous remaining tasks had all been wrapped up. Oh, okay, this is an interesting RV. Everyone piled into the RV. It was officially time for the trip to start. And it did. Cliff took the first shift driving. He cautiously navigated the massive car out of the narrow neighborhood streets. It was touch and go for the first part of the journey. Your moms and Kyra were all huddled at the front, trying to get a view of how much space they had on each side. There was a sense of relief when the first long leg of the trip was hit, and the RV would only need to go down one stretch of highway for miles. The mom group cleared out of the driver's area, leaving Cove's dad to it, taking more comfortable seats around the main cabin. You felt like you could finally relax now too. Time slipped by as morning faded away. Before you realized it, the engine of the RV came to a stop, but only halted for a few moments as Cliff climbed out of the driver's seat and Mom took over. Mom was sitting shotgun, giving Mom a quick tutorial on the controls as it was her first time driving anything this large. Cliff groaned as he headed towards the rest of you, stretching his arms above his head and loosening up his muscles. Oh, we're making good progress. Yeah, maybe you should take a nap in the back for a while. That was a long haul you just did, and I know you're on less sleep than usual. Cliff waved a hand, that trademark grin of his slipping into place. I don't need sleep. I've still got a few miles in this old tank. He flexed his arms, showing off his muscles. To to drive the point about how resilient he was home. Blah, I can't read words apparently. And Kyra rolled her eyes in amusement. Dad, everybody has to sleep. Ko shook his head at the tough guy act, though Cliff simply chuckled and ruffled his son's hair.
So,
Are you going to be driving again anytime soon, Mr. Holden? I want to know how so I can prepare. Did anyone pack some rope? I might need it. There's no seatbelts up here. Elizabeth called down from where she was lounging in the loft above the driver's compartment. She was laying on her back, her hair falling over the side and swinging around as the RV started up again and took off down the road. A bag of potato chips was balanced on Elizabeth's stomach, and she tossed a couple in her mouth. In her mouth, Cliff held a hand to his chest, pretending to be offended by the remark. Carol laughed lightheartedly. Lucky for all of us, we have enough adults to cover the shifts today. He won't be driving again until tomorrow. Phew, that's a relief. Just in time to write up my last will and testament. We shouldn't gang up on the poor guy. It's not his driving I'm worried about. Just enough time to write up my last will and testament. Why not just make the joke? Not you too. The rest of the group laughed while Cliff pouted, and you gave him an apologetic shrug. Mom then shouted back in her seat to join the conversation, a playful smile tilting on her lips. What I'm more worried about is this old monster getting us there and back again before falling apart. It looks as though it was built in the early 90s. It must be older than some of the occupants. That's just an aesthetic of the decor. It's not that old, I think. Did you ask what year the model was before you rented it? Kara wrinkled her nose in thought. Yes, I did. I just can't remember what the answer was. Cliff chuckled at her, while the rest of you let a collective sigh. The RV lurched a little as it picked up speed, and you held onto the ladder of the loft to keep your balance. You felt something graze the top of your head before a weight settled on your brown hair. When you tilted your chin up, you carefully looked and you heard the rustling of the bag of chips and realized Elizabeth had rested the end of it on your head. She gestured to the opening and silently offering to share a snack. Sure, why not? Reaching up, you scooped up some chips and after the weight of the packet left your scalp. You happily munched away as the conversation continued on, and you got closer and closer to your destination. The day flew by with the group of you chatting and playing games and passing the time together before finally arriving at the park, setting up for the night. Ma was closing the windows while everyone got ready for bed, saying goodnight to the others as she made her way to the back room. You all had dinner together while still driving, and some hours after you had arrived at your destination and found a spot to park in for the rest of your stay. Giving you a look across the front of the RV, you noticed almost everyone there was already dozing off where they were, McCobe having completely fallen asleep, curled up in the passenger seat. He must have done so while Kyra was driving the last leg, and they had decided not to disturb him. Kyra herself was the only one who was still awake, flipping through a magazine next to a portable light from her spot on the couch. It seemed Mr. Holden needed to sleep despite his claims. You followed your moms into the back room and closed the door behind you before crawling into the bed between them. It was a queen-size bed, so there was enough space for the three of you to get away without too much squishing. Get a good rest, Richie. We've got a big day ahead of us tomorrow.
that's fantastic.
I'm looking forward to the bush walk in the morning. It's been a long time since I was out in nature like this. There will be plenty for us to see. You stayed awake for a little while longer while your moms whispered about the park and forest in general. The sound of their voices in the background, eventually you nodded off into sleep. The next morning you were up bright and early, preparing for the day ahead. Um, I'd say it slept well. You fell asleep before you knew it and had woken up rested. Ma whined a bit about the firmness of the mattress, but Mom had only encouraged her to enjoy the trip while she could. While looking for a spot to get ready, you had some trouble finding a space of your own, as the others were doing the same thing. Cove was perched on top of the counter, brushing his hair and tucking up his legs every time someone wanted to move past. The parents were checking, double checking, and triple checking that you had everything, to the point where you had to stop listening to them altogether. You knew that you wouldn't be returning to the RV at all that day, but by the look of the backpacks that were packed up and ready to go, you doubted anything would be missing from them. It didn't take much longer until you all exited the RV in a bustle and headed into the Redwoods National Park. Cove had his head tilted upward towards the canopy of trees, his eyes wide as he took in the massive trunks on either side of you. You knew that redwood trees were considered the tallest trees on Earth, but you weren't prepared for exactly how huge they would be in person. Smile, you two. You spun in just in time for Kyra to snap a picture of you and Cove together, before she pointed her camera at Cliff, trying to get a shot, despite his weak protest that she should just enjoy the moment. Your parents were walking behind the group a little, with Mom telling Ma some information she had read about the park in a brochure. Ma listened happily while looking around and taking in the sights, every now and then asking a question or making a joke about something Mom had said. You smiled at them, thinking your mom must have read a lot of pamphlets to know so much about the park. Maybe you should come and work here as a tour guide if you know so much about the place. Elizabeth teased, earning a squeeze on the nose from your mom. She seemed to be enjoying herself, but you thought that might just be because she was amused by everyone else's reactions. You were in a good mood, you weren't as impressed as the others, you were embarrassed by the adults being so touristy. Your fascinating sensations surrounding you. I guess I was fascinated. Bird calls echoed all around you, and once or twice something would rustle in the underbrush. You strained your eyes through the trees for any signs of wildlife and managed to catch a glimpse of a rabbit bounding through the foliage. The adults had decided to take some casual nature walks rather than any serious hiking, and you strolled along at your own pace, taking in the scenery. Elizabeth sped up a little, smirking at Cove as she fell into place between the two of you, and immediately could tell by your expression she was going to say something taunting. I can't believe our families are actually on vacation together. She threw her arms out, speaking with genuine sense of bewilderment. I would have joked about something like this happening, but now I'm not sure I want to give them any more ideas. Cove smiled at her, even if it was a little awkwardly, and continued walking along. Just watch, next year they'll be talking about the next new amazing idea. She put on a fake voice deeper than her own. We should just sell both our houses and move in together. Think of how much we'd save on the mortgage. It was clear that Elizabeth was being sarcastic. Cove simply shook his head, not really bothered by her. You suppose he was used to it by this point. But seriously, they really do act like we're a single family, and just because we live across the street from each other. Elizabeth gave you and Cove a look, her eyes glinting with mischief as she leered at you. Maybe one day we'll be related. Legally, anyway. She said it as though she was a gossipy old lady. But she almost immediately dropped the tone and nonchalantly said her real thoughts. At least that's what Ma thinks. Cove so blushed, which made Elizabeth smile triumphantly, as though that was her whole purpose for teasing him. Then he mumbled quietly, refusing to make eye contact with either of you. I don't know why you think you're so funny when no one else does. I'll marry you, Cove. You ignored Elizabeth, you were embarrassed. Really? You guys, y'all can't just put that option in front of me and not expect me to pick it. We're gonna pick it. I'll marry you, Cove. He looked at you in disbelief. He genuinely could not believe this is where the conversation had gone. Oh, whoops. Misclicked again. Don't worry over it. You can take as long as you need to think on that. Oh, my boy. My poor baby boy. Cove frowned and reddened harder, but pretended to ignore what you were saying. Your sister noticed what was happening. Ooh, he isn't going to engage with this topic. Oh no. Elizabeth is a punster. Oh my god, I love this. Well, welcome to the pun club, Elizabeth. He groaned at the continued teasing and increased his speed of his walk. The day continued on, with plenty to see and experience. You passed a few different activities that you would have liked to try out if you had the time, such as kayaking and rock climbing, but Ma said that would have to wait for another trip. There was a little stream during the walk that you sat beside and set out a picnic for lunch, nibbling on the selection of fruit, sandwiches, and chips. Various birds flew by overhead, and you made a game about guessing the species that were hanging around the trees nearby. You even managed to get a couple of them right, including the kingfisher, then grabbed half of Cliff's sandwich. The kingfisher that grabbed his sandwich. You're glad you got to do this in the end. Disappointed. Long trip wasn't worth it. More fun hanging on the RV. Yeah, it's good. It was a good trip. It was definitely a special experience, and one you remember for a long time to come. You smiled to yourself, committing the sights and sounds to memory. Your group made it back to the camp just as the sun was setting in the sky, and the stars were appearing one by one. Everyone had enjoyed different parts of it most. You traded stories of what you thought while you were eating dinner. Afterwards, you pitched in and helped clean up. You, along with Elizabeth and Cove, got to head back to the RV early and spend some time together while the parents stayed outside longer. It was nice to have the space to yourselves after the cramped journey there. While Elizabeth had locked herself in the back room with her headphones, you and Cove were left in the main lounge area. You headed up to the loft to rest on your own. Of course we're going to hang out with Cove. Why wouldn't we? We might as well get comfortable. Who knows how long they'll be out for. Oh my god, he's wearing the little tracksuit. It's adorable. He took a seat on the sofa while Cove sat down on the other end, tapping his fingers against his knees. Your cheeks warmed a little at that. Being close to him never failed to feel exciting. You've seen Cove nearly every day for the past 5 years, but seeing him in a jacket was still somewhat unusual. In Southern California, he could get away with that. It was a simple difference from his normal style, yet you couldn't help but notice the way he looked right now. It looked great on him. In fact, Cove always looked nice. Aww. When Cove cleared his throat, your eyes snapped to his. He had an eyebrow raised and clearly caught you staring at him. Is everything okay? You reverted your gaze from entirely. Yeah, don't worry about it. That looks nice on you. Yeah, everything is really good. You nodded while saying nothing. That looks nice on you. Cove immediately blushed at the unexpected compliment. What? He didn't say anything more than that one-worded question. You decided to elaborate further. I hardly ever see you wearing a jacket, especially in the summer. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I like wearing as few layers as possible. It's easier that way. I'd rather be cold than extra hot. And it's kind of a pain to carry extra clothes around. My parents made me bring this jacket. I don't mind either way. I love wearing layers. I love layers and accessories too. I don't mind either way. I just dress depending on the weather or how I'm feeling at the time. Cove smiled lightly at you and nodded. I've noticed. You perked up hearing that. He noticed you too? You changed the subject. You asked him what he'd like to see others wear. Second one. Hey, what kind of things do you think are nice on another to see on another person? Cole's eyes widened at the question. His defensive reply seemed to slip out before he had a chance to have a proper think about it. Nothing. Mm, you paid it no mind. He still did, however. I didn't mean it like that, you know. I know. Answer with what you do mean then. Isn't there anything at all you think looks good when you see it on someone? Cove mumbled under his breath, and you couldn't quite catch his words. He was having a difficult time with the subject. Hmm. I, I swear I won't make fun of you. That's not really it. Cove seemed to get pretty grumpy about your statement, but you weren't ready to give up so easily. Please? Cove sighed and looked down at his lap where he was fidgeting with his hands, still reluctant to give an answer.
I don't know.
You made him unimpressed. You made an unimpressed sound over how this was going. Are you sure? Fine, I guess. I kind of like ankle bracelets. Ankle bracelets? Yeah, everyone can wear a pretty bracelet. Wrist ones are cool too, but they're pretty normal. There's something fun or flirty about ankle bracelets.
I.
It's more it's more special or something. I don't know how to explain it. Cove brushed his knuckles against his cheeks awkwardly, seemingly unsure where to go from here. Huh, out of everything in the world you picked that. So you think they're sexy? um, I like him too. Cove smiles at you, happy to hear he wasn't the only one who felt that way. When he said nothing else, you took the moment to gather your own thoughts. You had to get an anklet ASAP. Maybe you'd wear anklets more now. Maybe you wouldn't wear your anklets so often. You thought about buying an anklet of your own. You were happy to hear more about Cove, but it didn't really change anything. Um, maybe you'd wear anklets more now. You had a couple of different ones at home. With this new knowledge, you might slip them into your daily outfits in the future. Cove looked away again, feeling awkward about this. We gave him an understanding look, and usually he would start to smile like normal again, but not this time. His expression only stiffened more. You were surprised to see him like this, as he always bounced back pretty quickly after being flustered. Cove? Still, he wouldn't look at you, and now even his breathing was growing tense. It began to click. He was trying to build himself up enough to say something hard for him. You waited for it silently. Until finally he peeked your way through the corner of his eyes. You were fully attentive by this point, for whatever he was going to mention next.
That's,
People having brown eyes, that's also something I like. Wait, doesn't my character have brown eyes? Oh gosh. Huh? For a moment you were stunned and at a complete loss for words. That was definitely not where you imagined this was going. Cove faced you head on, his expression full of desperate meaning. You got the distinct impression that he hadn't chosen that just because he liked the color brown. He chose it entirely because it was your eye color. Was he trying to flirt with you? That was all you could think of. Your legs felt like jelly and you wondered if you might fall right off the couch. What do you like for another person, Richie? Muscles, pretty hair, glasses, blue eyes, everything about you. Okay, that's a bit too blatant, don't you think? I mean, if we're gonna, I mean, if I'm gonna be realistic about this, I actually don't really mind what the person looks like. I don't really mind what my partner looks like as long as they have a good personality, you know. You know what? But if we're gonna be a flirt about it, let's just get him back for that. Let's say blue eyes, because why not? Cove blushed a deeper shade of red, and his mouth fell open, acknowledging that you had just used the same line back on him. Now you were both flirting with each other. He placed his hands on his lap and looked down. It seemed he hadn't expected to get this far and didn't know where to go from here. like that one plankton meme. Like, I don't know, I didn't think I'd get this far.
I don't know. I never thought I'd get this far.
With that topic abruptly dropped off, Cove officially had no more to say on it. The parents all arrived soon after, each of them climbing into the RV and finding some place to sit down with to rest their legs. Elizabeth, having heard some commotion, came out from the room for the first time since arriving and joined you all. You spent the evening chatting and playing a few games, enjoying the last evening of the trip together. Bedtime arrived within a blink of an eye. As the group hunkered down for the night, your mom did a final round to be sure nothing had been left behind. She explained that Cliff was going to start driving early in the morning, like on the first day, but would be letting everyone else in the group sleep. There wouldn't be a need for all of them to get up. Now it's time to check you hadn't left anything outside. You, as well as everyone else, were confident that you had all packed up inside the RV, which meant it was time to get some rest before the journey home tomorrow. Your moms and Elizabeth said goodnight, heading back to the back room while you climbed up to the loft. Cove and his family got situated below in the previously set arrangement. You tried to get comfortable as a million thoughts were running through your mind. It was hard to believe that the trip was practically over, and before you knew it, you'd be back in your own bed at home. You thought the trip had been okay, a waste of time, hadn't been good. You enjoyed this mini adventure. It was short, that was sure, but you had got to see and do so much during your time here. All in all, it was a nice break away from home. The minutes tickled by silently, as it didn't take long for the soft snores of Cliff and Kyra to drift up to you. They were asleep now. You wondered if Cove was still awake, and decided to poke your head out from the loft to find out. You blinked through the dark. Looking down the hall, you noticed Cove laying on his back, his eyes staring straight up at the ceiling. His seafoam hair was spread out on his sleeping bag. He must have felt you watching him because suddenly his eyes locked on yours. It was difficult to see much of the dim light, but you could make out that crooked smile in his face well enough. He made a silly face. You waved at him. You grinned back at him. Grinned back at him. Cove shrugged in his bed while still smiling, or at least you thought he did. I'm trying to sleep. You said have fun quietly. You suggested for him to come over. Cove looked unsure about it, but you were happy to see him slowly sit up anyway. His sleeping bag rustled as he moved, though he tried to go slow and froze up like a deer in headlights every time he made a sound, watching his parents for any sign of movement. Eventually, he managed to maneuver his sleeping bag around his sleeping bag and make it his sleeping dad and make it to the ladder, standing at the bottom on the bottom rung, where he looked up at you and whispered, "What?" "Hi. Oh, it's nothing. Good night. How are you doing?" You invited him up to the loft. You know what? Sure, why not? Do you want to come up? His eyes widened, just so. You could only tell because he had come to where you were. Cove glanced behind him quickly as sleeping parents before turning back to you. Okay. You broke out into a grin and scooched back as far as you could, making space for Cove to crawl in. He was very tall, so it wasn't a great fit for him, but he managed to squeeze himself in. Even if you weren't exactly tall, the loft was still a tight squeeze with the two of you there together. Aww. You laid down next to each other on your sides, face to face. He got under the blanket a bit. One of his arms was nestled under his head for comfort. The other had nowhere to go and was rested alongside his chest, on the floor of the loft. Cove spoke to you softly. So, what am I doing here? Honestly, I can see some thumbnail material right here. What am I doing here? You can sleep here instead of the floor. Cove raised an eyebrow, not having expected you to bring that up now. I'm not sure about this. Cove swallowed loudly, and you noticed he wouldn't look at you in the eyes anymore. Oh. Hey, that music's pretty smooth. Wait, hold up. Let me turn that music up a little bit. Hey! Who was in the studio with this? This is smooth. You were feeling nervous too. You felt comfortable being so close to him. His reaction made you happy. You felt comfortable. It seemed so natural to have him near you, and being close like this only made it better. You thought back to earlier in the evening when you and Cove had been talking alone on the sofa. He had definitely been flirting then, and now you were here. You nudged him closer. You nudged closer to him. You tried to ease things with the conversation. You laid there silently. Why don't we try to ease things in conversation? That sounds like an easy thing. So it's been a really nice night, huh? Oh, yeah. I guess it has. Don't you think the loft is more comfortable than it looks?
Nice.
It's not bad. Would be nice to have more room. Cove smiled at you through the dim light, and you knew he was only joking. The two of you continued to whisper for a while, becoming more relaxed. Bruh, you can't just give me that choice and not expect me to pick it. Oh my god. Well, I honestly don't know what to do. I don't know. Doesn't seem like the right moment just yet. I don't know. Really, I honestly don't know. I'm gonna stay right here. I've been recording for nearly 2 hours already. My god. This is probably gonna be the longest video of the series, I won't lie. Oh god, I actually don't really know. I'm not sure if it's the right moment right now though, cause like, I really don't know. Like my god, even I'm blushing about this right now. I honestly don't know what to do. You know what? When in doubt, middle it out, right? Like we can always see what happens we can always see what happens next in a different time to see what happens. You closed the distance completely and nuzzled your face into the crook of his neck, under his chin. It was warmer than you thought it'd be. Cope stiffened up a little, let out a yelp, which he quickly bit down on his lip to stifle. He gave you an apologetic look, but this still wasn't bad for him, just surprising. After a few more moments, you settled in, his breaths deep and steady. He rested a cheek against the top of your head. You could feel his lips curved into a smile, and it made you happier to know he was enjoying the moment too. The two of you fell asleep before long, cuddled up together. When you woke up the next morning, it was the rumble of the RV as it traveled a long journey home. You noticed quickly that you weren't as warm as you had been during the night. When you checked next to you, Cope was gone. Blinking sleepily, you peeked over the edge of the loft to find out where he had gone. Maybe he had snuck back to his spot on the floor during the night? However, you soon noticed him sitting on the couch, talking quietly with his mom. His head hung in embarrassment. Your movement gave you away, and Kara suddenly looked up and caught your eye. She simply smiled amusedly at you, and it was obvious what happened. Cove hadn't gotten away with it. You found him there in the loft, and they found him there in the loft, and then you woke up while he was still trying to explain. You knew it was going to be a long, long time before you lived this one down, if you ever did. Soon your moms and Elizabeth emerged from their room, dressed and ready for the day of travel. You spent most of the day hanging out together in the RV, savoring the last few hours of vacation. Kyra suggested a few different travel games she used to play with Cove when he was younger, and you all had a great time competing against each other. A little later in the day, you tried to talk to Cove about what happened in the loft, but he simply apologized and changed the subject. You see, guys, I told you. When in doubt, I told you guys, when in doubt, you middle it out. Anyways, when the RV finally pulled onto the street onto your street, it was well into the night, and you were looking forward to crawling into your own bed after the last few days. Everyone else must have been feeling the same, because it was mutually agreed that unpacking and cleaning the RV would wait until morning. Once home again, you went straight up to your room and dropped onto your bed, shoes and all. It felt weird to be alone. It felt good to be alone. You wish you were still on the trip. You missed being near Cove. Y'all know what I'm going to say at this point. The two of you had basically been living together for 3 days. It was nice. But you knew that it wouldn't be the last time the two of you would spend time together. That thought comforted you. With those last few thoughts drifting through your mind, it wasn't long before you dozed off to sleep. Tomorrow would go on like normal. Whew, wow. That was a lot for one episode. And yeah, there are moments you can do with Derek, but they're behind a freaking paywall. But you guys probably know how it is. Anyways, I'm gonna leave this episode here for now, guys. This was a long one, so hopefully you guys enjoyed all the content that we had here. Be sure to leave a like. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Share this video with your friends, and be sure to subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss a single notification. I'll see all of you in the next video. Goodbye.
You say you wanna try, but you never do. Sugar, there's a reason.